Morning. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. I am recording this as a video. I am also recording it as a podcast episode. So wherever you're listening or watching, I am really pleased that you're here today. Just before I thought about sharing this, I had a sense of maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should keep this to myself. But today, or rather yesterday, but I found out today, I hit a really big goal. And when I started my podcast in January 2018, I started not really knowing clearly what I was doing or how to build or how to create, or even if I should even have a podcast. And yesterday I had my highest number of listens that I've ever had in a day on my podcast. And the reason that I wanted to share this is because it's been something that I've been working on. I did a speaking gig at the weekend. And one of the things that I was talking about was really speaking to your ideal client. And sometimes when people talk about ideal clients, they talk about that person who's like, hi, I'm ready to give you the money. Let's do this. Let's sign up. What's your availability? But actually, there's a spectrum to your ideal client. And often that ideal client that is in very much the stage of thinking or researching or considering or just in that sort of getting the cogs turning, I knew that I wanted to speak to them as well. And that has been a really big part of the podcast for me, because I know over the last decade since I've been coaching and having a personal brand and all the rest of it, people talk about being ready. Like, I'm ready. Are you ready? Make a decision. But there's a lot of stuff where you're feeling it out and you're kind of figuring it out. So I always wanted to speak to that person as well. And so as I've been growing this podcast, I've really been finding my feet as a creator as well, and working out what I want to share, where my boundaries are, what really resonates with people, what doesn't so much, where people are listening, why people are listening. And the fact that yesterday I hit my highest number, and here are the lessons, they're coming. Yesterday I knew that I'd hit my highest number because I've been studying my stats. And this is a really key part to being in a state of growth or building or working towards something. Because many of us are operating from a blind perspective where they're not really sure where they're up to or how they're feeling or what their measure of success is. And it's all just a little bit vague. And knowing that number, I guess, or knowing what that pattern was or what had been happening within the podcast, I knew when I logged in today and I saw that spike immediately, I was like, wow, what has happened here? Where has this podcast gone? It was a significant jump. Probably double to what I'd had previously. Also, this is a really interesting one. There's no rhyme or reason. Nothing happened yesterday. I put out a podcast as kind of normal, and I didn't have a shout out, or I didn't do anything high profile or anything like that. I don't know why, but maybe when I find out, I'll share a little bit more with you. So knowing where I was up to was a really great indicator to knowing when things shifted. About 6 weeks ago, I went back to hot yoga as well. And it was really interesting to have that time. And I know this sounds really kind of self-indulgent, but to have that time with my body again. And when I'm talking about body, I'm not just talking about the physical shape of me. I'm talking about my head, my nervous system, how I feel emotionally, how much capacity I have, whether I'm in alignment. And that first session of going back I felt like I'd been slapped round the face, not by the yoga teacher or by the experience, because it really shocked me, actually. It shocked me how tired I felt, how blocked in my body I felt, how disconnected I felt, how things felt really tricky. Things that had been, absolutely fine 5 years ago. I trained as a dancer, like all of these things, no problem. I really felt all of my 40 years. And really understanding that first session of going, wow, okay, this is where I am today. It's going to take a bit of time. It's going to take some patience. It's going to take some kindness. It's going to take some time and space and compassion. And that's all okay as well. But interestingly, I did not want to go back to that first yoga class, because actually, if I knew deep down, I probably knew the truth about it. I knew that I felt really tired. I knew that I felt really stuck in my body. And sometimes when you have to look at yourself in a mirror, it's really exposing. And so what do? When you don't want to feel exposed, or when you're feeling vulnerable, you want to run away. And this is a really important part in terms of your business as well. And I am saying this in the most compassionate way as well, because I've had to do it to myself, especially when I've looked at my bank account over the years and gone, oh my goodness, I'm just, what is this business? I've got all these expenses going out, but I'm not making nearly enough money to really live. That was definitely a situation at the beginning part of my coaching. But secondly, to really feel rewarded and really feel that that exchange, that lovely currency. And I was getting to the end of the week and I was working really hard, but I didn't feel like I was being compensated for it. Interesting. So sometimes if you're having that nudge of like, maybe I need to look at this, or maybe I need to think about this, do it when you're in your most compassionate place. Do it in a time where maybe you've got that time and space for yourself, and you can really do it step by step. And this could be sometimes like just introducing a new habit. So for example, if you want to grow your business, if you want to grow your income, for example, you have to really start to study what is happening on a day-to-day basis. And I know I've spoken about this a lot on the podcast, but I think it is so important. And I really learned this the hard way. I probably check my bank accounts probably like 3 times a day. And some people, again, might be like, wow, that's a bit extreme. But I really like to know what's happening, what's going on, to make sure that things are where they're supposed to be. Because how many years ago? I can't even think, maybe 5 years ago, my bank account got hacked. And on Christmas Day, I couldn't get any money out. And like it went way into like this overdraft that I've never seen before and beyond. And I couldn't access any money. And it was like the most terrifying thing, because it just made me feel really vulnerable. And so when I was listening at the same time of really thinking about that growth, I was like, well, I've got to focus on this. I've got to really see what's going on. Unfortunately, I was in that stage of checking daily my bank account, because I was really working on my money mindset, and I spotted it straight away. And actually there were about 4 or 5 different transactions where it had been hacked, and it happened once and then it happened like a fortnight later. Nightmare, hideous. But this is not to scare you or anything like that, but it's just a really good reminder. These habits, sometimes we talk about habits as being like something that's a sacrifice or something that we've got to do, but they're really lovely things actually. Once you get into the rhythm of them, you start to really reap the rewards of you paying attention to the stuff that's going on. Another thing that today really made me do is to reflect back to January 2018. And the reason that I wanted to share this today is that so often we're on to the next thing. Or I might say, yes, but I haven't reached this number yet. And like, I've got to keep pushing and I've got to keep doing that. And instead, I try to bring that smile to my face of like, do you remember in January 2018 when you had no like literally no idea how to start. I was YouTubing how to start a podcast. What microphone do I need? How do I connect iTunes and my podcast? Like what are all those components? And I remember like putting something live for the first time. It felt really terrifying. It felt really vulnerable. It felt like, oh my gosh, what if nobody listens? Or even more terrifying, what if somebody actually listens? And so reflecting from today to 4.5 years ago, it was a really important step in terms of my career journey of thinking, wow, you've learned a lot of skills, like well done you. Again, that's something that's really challenging for myself because I'm an ideas person. I want to be on to the next thing and doing stuff and being in that motion. But actually today I stopped and I really thought about it. And I would really invite you to do the same wherever you're up to, whatever's been going on for you. Have you taken the time to recognize what you are doing, how you have evolved and changed and been resilient and found your way? I hope so. The next thing that today has made me think is to ask myself, so if I'm here today, 4.5 years later, where do I want to be to 4.5 years from now? Interesting. So I'll be 45 then. Yep. And where do I want to be? Where do I want to take this? And I've taken some time this morning just to really get into that dreaming state and being excited and opening myself up, because when I was at school, I didn't know you could start a podcast. I didn't know that you could make your own things. It wasn't really invented then. And so allowing myself to dream big, it's always a really fun exercise. The final piece today is to simplify and to really do less. Now, if you have followed my podcast for a while, there's definitely been times where I felt that pressure to always be creating more, to be talking about different things, to almost be widening up that content. And I now know that when I simplify, when I really lean into my message or my zone of genius, as Gay Hendricks says in that brilliant book, The Big Leap, I know when I lean into that, that's when I get the results. And I'm not necessarily talking about results as in clients and stats or anything like that. The results for me are about going back to my measures of success. One of which is when somebody messages me and said, I heard the podcast today and I now know what to do. Or you really gave me some food for thought there and I'm going to try this even though I'm scared. Those sorts of things are results for me. Not when I try to do everything, because if I go too thinly, it doesn't resonate. And really looking at how I can simplify things, how I can be really clear on what my message is. The final thing that I want to share is to not berate yourself for the mistakes that you've made, or the things that didn't go perfectly, or the things that you didn't do. And I caught myself doing this earlier in the week. A couple of years ago, and it probably is a couple of years ago now, I recorded loads and loads of podcasts. And then the pandemic hit, and I needed to earn money and provide for my family, and creating content wasn't necessarily a big focus. I needed to work on money-making activities. And in a way, the podcast is a money-making activity, but it felt like it had to move down to down the priority list, essentially. So I've got these podcasts that I haven't released yet. And immediately I went into that state of thinking, oh my goodness, I should have done that. Like, why have I not done that? Oh, how unprofessional. I went into that really negative talk. And I had to stop myself and say, no, you did what you needed to do at the time. And it will be lovely when you put them out and you'll be able to share them in that way. And so as a final takeaway from today, an exercise, I want to ask you, where are you not being kind to yourself? Where are you letting that emotion or that sense of not being enough or doing the thing or should have done it quicker, shoulda, woulda, coulda, all of that? Where is that getting in the way? Because I tell you what, being in that state and letting those things hold you back, you have to think of them like negative obstacles in the way. I don't know if you ever watched Gladiators or any kind of like team sports in those ITV shows, basically in the 90s. There would sometimes be that contestant who would have a ball and they basically had to take that ball and get it to the other end of the track or whatever it might be. And you would have gladiators trying to block them and trying to move. And sometimes they'd be able to swerve around them. Sometimes they would be able to do things. But for the most part, it would slow them down. It would get in their way. It would throw them off balance. And that is what your coulda, woulda, shoulda things are going to be in your situation as well. And so, of course, feel free to welcome them like, oh, okay, there's that limiting belief again. Oh, that always pops up. But just invite them to come in the room. Don't allow them to take control of what it is that you're trying to build. I hope you've got something from today. I hope it's been useful. And I would love to know, as always, what's going on for you. I am now available for one-on-one sessions in person, which I am so delighted about. So if you are London based or you can get to London and you want to do a strategy session with me, please do book it in via my website, nickyraby.com/sessions. I am really loving doing face-to-face stuff again and seeing people in real life. It's just been glorious. And we can have the piece of paper on the table. Thanks so much for being here. And and I work fast as well. I think this is the thing. Whenever I do these sessions, I'm always looking for that experience. And when I talk about experience, I'm talking about not just necessarily the hour that I have with somebody. And so I always want somebody to feel prepared and to know what they want to get from the time that we have together. So there's a lot of pre-work to do beforehand. There's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of really thinking about it. So I always liken it to this analogy, that if you're having a building work done, on the day, you don't want a builder just to turn up and go, right, okay, so what we doing then? What we doing? You want that builder to know in advance what the situation is, what they want to build, what equipment they're going to need, what they want to focus on, how long it's going to take. And the more that I can do that for you and you being really prepared, it's only just going to enhance the experience. Likewise afterwards as well. So one thing I always find is clients leave the session like, yeah, let's do this. Yeah, I'm going to do this. Oh, this is really exciting. Had such a great day. And then the next day, what can happen is you can have that kind of productivity hangover where you're like, oh, I'm excited sort of about these ideas, but I've no idea how I'm going to do it. And that's why I'm there every step of the way for a week or 2 weeks, depending on how we work together. Because, sometimes I am the only one who knows what you want to build and knows what you need, aside from you as well. And that is not a responsibility that I take lightly. So often after a session, people will say, I've never told anybody that before, or like, I've been holding on to this idea for the last 6 years. And so feeling like you're in that comfortable situation of where you can go, yeah, I am inspired to do that. And I do know that I want to do that. And I am going to send that pig an email that I've been thinking about. You need somebody on your team who's going to go, yes, all right, you can do that. Or send me the email first. How does it feel? Is this where you want to go with that as well? So yeah, if you want to find out more, just go to nickyraby.com/sessions. I'm going to have some lunch because I'm a northern monkey and it's 10 to 12. So what am I thinking? Have a beautiful day, whatever you're doing. Thanks so much for being here. Sending lots of love your way. Any questions, as always, you are welcome to DM me or email me hello@NickyRaby, and I'll see you soon. Bye.